Hey everybody, how's it going? This is Rob, the Bearded Bible Thinker podcast, and one of the things that I just started doing recently is working through different subject matter that various Puritans spoke about, um, and I'm calling that the Puritans on. And right now, it's the Puritans on discontentment, or contentment rather. And last week covered Simeon Ashe quote, and I want to do one more Simeon Ashe quote because I think it's this is really helpful as we think about contentment, and it's from the same work, Primitive Divinity. And the quote is this when he speaks about contentment. He says, "The way for a Christian to be contented." So you'll notice these are from Puritans, right? So most of these cats lived in like the 1600s, okay? So 16, 1700s. So some of the language is going to be a bit archaic. You'll just have to be okay with that because I'm not going to translate it on the fly. He says, "The way for a Christian to be contented is not by raising his estate higher, but by bringing his spirit lower, not by making his barns wider, but his heart narrower. One man, a whole lordship or manor will not content him. Another is satisfied with a few acres of land." What is the difference? The one studies the one studies to satisfy curiosity, the other necessity. The one thinks what he may have, the other thinks what he may spare. So that's the quote, and I think so. The primary thing that he's saying is summed up in the first real statement in that quote when he says, "The way for a Christian to be contented is not by raising his estate higher, but by bringing his spirit lower." And then the rest of that short quote is him teasing that out just a little bit. And so the way for a Christian to be contented is not by raising his estate higher. This is something that we tend to do. We tend to so if I'm discontent, right, the the temptation becomes go to get the thing that I want, and that will make me content, right? Like that's the temptation. And one of the things that he uses here is barns, for instance, or land, or but you have a bigger barn. You have more stuff. You get a bigger house. You increase your wealth. You increase your paycheck. Maybe you increase your, uh, uh, well, whatever. Fill in that blank, right? You increase what you have in an attempt to find contentment. And when you do that, all you'll find is that it actually, even if maybe for a moment you feel content or there's a rush there or whatever, but what you'll find is that ultimately, man, that didn't satisfy me at all. It just didn't, because what you want is more. I think that's actually a famous. Was it Donald Trump? I might have that wrong, but I think maybe it was Donald Trump. It was a very wealthy person was asked at one point, uh, when is enough enough? Like when are you going to you continue to grow, you continue to build your business, your company, your the things that you own, your wealth. When is it going to be enough? At what point are you gonna um, uh, and basically the answer was more. I want more. What do you want out of life? More or whatever. I butchered it, I know, but that's the sentiment of so many of us, right? We may not be, independently wealthy or whatever. May not have a weekend house at the Hamptons that you fly in on your runway, or something like that. Um, but we tend to think like that and function like that. So often, I will find myself discontent, and the first thing that I tend toward is thinking that if I can only get this thing that my mind is fixated on at the moment, I will be content. If I can only uh, uh, do this, if I can only grab that, if I can only heal that relationship, then I'll be content. And so you chase it. You make your barn bigger. You buy more land. You have more things. You work on your relationship. Okay, a bigger barn, more land, a better relationship with your spouse or children or friends or whatever, mother, father. Um, those aren't bad things, right? They're not. Those are gifts from God. Those are wonderful things. Those are things. If you don't have a good relationship with your spouse, you should work on that, right? Or if there are areas where you're lacking in relationship with your children, you should work on that. It's not a bad thing, but it will not ultimately satisfy you. Not even at all. Um, Once the initial rush wears off, you will not be satisfied. Once the initial rush wears off, it's just going to be over. And so our tendency is to raise our estate, is how he words it. But it's not by raising his estate higher, but by bringing his spirit lower. Humility, expectation, understanding what's important, what actually is necessary. Those are the kinds of things that actually make a person content, or that help aid us in chasing contentment. Ironically, I think that one of the things that is really healthy for us to be discontent about is our lack of contentment. I think that as you and I think about being content, being just happy with what we have, happy with who we have, we shouldn't find ourselves content with being discontent. We shouldn't find ourselves fine with that. It should go deeper, and so that's all for today. It's a short quote. The one he says, the one thinks what he may have, the other thinks what he may spare. The way for a Christian to be contented is not by raising his estate higher, but by bringing his spirit lower. Blessed are the poor in spirit, right? Understanding the reality of the situation is the gospel, right? The reality of the situation is the truth of the gospel, and that is that God is this big, right? That God is holy, and God is righteous, and God is just, and God is perfect, and I'm not. I'm the opposite of many of those things, and whenever I do get something right, it's in spite of me. And so as I think about that truth, and I think about what Christ did, what he accomplished, that is really what I should be chasing to be content, to be contented by. It should be, I should understand that in my humble estate, the things that I have, even down to the coffee that I drink in the morning, are such undeserved blessings. Because what the Bible teaches is that as sinful people who are under the curse, we are we deserve death. That's what we actually deserve. The wages of sin is death. The paycheck that we have earned, that we've worked hard for and earned, is a paycheck of eternal damnation. And so when we think about and focus on the gospel of Christ, when that is what we pursue, when we seek first the kingdom of God, when we look toward the things of the Lord, when we care about what God cares about, and when we focus on the gospel, the glory of the gospel, the indescribable gospel of Jesus Christ, that a lowly sinner like me can become a child of God. Well, that is a spring of contentment. And so may we focus together on Christ and on what we have been given in the gospel. And may that help us move more and more toward contentment together.